3, live. Good
Good night
evening.
to the Belizean
Uh,
people
well,
at home and abroad. Tonight we bring to you a 55th edition of Belizean Affairs. Sitting with me virtually is my host, Mr. Leonard Brackett. And with that said, let me go straight to him for a reading and the prayers.
good evening. My name is Leonard Brackett. I'm one of the panelists on the show, and I'll be the chairman for tonight's show. I want to do a short reading. Uh, okay. Proverbs chapter 29, verses 1 and 2. He that being often reproved hardeneth his, his, his neck shall suddenly be destroyed, and that without remedy. Verse 2. When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoiceth. But when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. Amen. That's the reading from the scripture for tonight. I'd just like to offer a short prayer, if you don't mind. Divine loving Father, we come to thee once more, asking that thou would accept our humble expression of gratitude and thankfulness to thee for giving us the privilege of life and the opportunity to still be alive among our family members, friends, and loved ones. Thou knowest our hearts, our desires, even our most secret thoughts, loving Father. We pray that thou mayest continue to bless us, guide us, strengthen, and protect us. Please help that we may produce a program tonight that may have some benefits to the general public. We pray that thou mayest bless all those people who are having difficulties, whether man-made or natural disasters. We pray that thou mayest have mercy upon them as well. For we ask these mercies in Jesus' name. Amen.
Ancestors, them get glory. After war and fight for this land, today I feel proud to be Belizean. And every time I walk through the streets, I feel so blessed, so good and so free. And every time my foot touch the beach, I feel so at peace, thanking God for my country. And I don't know how it make you feel when the breeze such a fracas just touches you up, but I'm kinda living in a fantasy. It's the only place that I wanna be. My Belize, my homeland by the sea, beautiful with the trees and valleys, culture rich with a one big family, all the way from the mountains to the keys. Your vacation dream is home to me. Belize. Make I tell you a little bit about my history. Home Belize was a British crown colony. By September 1981, we take back we country in a we hands. And every time I think about Belize, I feel so blessed, so good and so free. Place full of diversity, we all got the culture as we love it. And I don't know how it make you feel when the drums start not make you want to dig it up, but I'm kinda living in a fantasy. It's the only place that I wanna be. My Belize, my homeland by the sea, beautiful with the trees and valleys, culture rich with a one big family, all the way from the mountains to the keys. Your vacation dream is home to me. Belize, my Belize, Belize.
Thank you very much. Um, could you go ahead and cue up the first uh, video for me, please, if you don't mind? Greg,
Yes, go ahead, sir.
could you go ahead and cue up the first video for me, please?
Different laws at play here. And the Referendum Act and the People's Constitution Act. So, as you will appreciate, the People's Constitution Act also speaks to a referendum, and a referendum after the whole consultation process with respect to the Constitution. Again, I don't want to prejudice any particular discussion or that we're having at Oceana, but suffice it to say that there is an interplay. There's a between both the People's Constitution Act and the Referendum Act. There may be difference of opinions as it relates to how the interplay actually operates. If indeed there is an interplay, you take a firm position that, well, there is no interplay. But yeah, but so
Thank you very much. And could you back up the other one too, just the same? Because I'm going to comment on both of them at the same time, no?
I don't think it's a matter of willfully ignoring it, but we felt that since we already have the People's Constitutional Commission ongoing right now, that would be the best place to be able to address it through the PCC, since they were asking even for the amendment of the Constitution.
Those two videos that we just showed just now relates to the fact that the Prime Minister and the Attorney General were attempting to conflate what the facts really were. In one instance, the Attorney General is saying that there might be some interplay, and then he's questioning, well, if there is any interplay, and then he goes on to say, well, there's no interplay. You know, he's triple talking, not only just double talking. He's trying to get cute by 1.5 times, too much. Both of them stipulating that it is the problem that the law cannot be followed through because of the Constitutional Review Commission. The People's Constitutional Review Commission that is in place, that the Prime Minister put in place, that he is now trying to blame for him not being able to follow the law or govern according to the powers that was granted to him, when in fact he did not derogate the powers of governance to that Constitution Committee, because that committee, for all intents and purposes, is just to collect information on which he has to act. And by the time that commission finishes its work and is disbanded, that whatever product they produce would not have then, at that time, have any legal powers over the existing laws of our land, unless the Prime Minister takes it to the House and the House votes upon it, and the people have a vote in a referendum, and then subsequently have the governor sign it, gazetted, and a few other items needing to be dealt with in terms of draftsmanship of the Constitution itself. So, for all intents and purposes, when the Prime Minister is saying that he cannot act on the law because he has to wait till the Constitution, the People's Constitutional Reform Commission finishes their work, he's not only conflating, he's outrightly lying and bamboozling people. Because he did indeed go to the House, as we can recall, at the last House sitting, and propose additional laws, didn't he? So then, if the commission is in play, he should have left that proposal of law that he was trying to get through the House to be added on to what the commission is doing. Defer to the commission, just as he was intimating when he said he cannot give Oceana a referendum because, as the Attorney General is saying, there's a referendum that they're going to have for the Constitutional Reform Commission. It is unfortunate that these gentlemen have to resort to those kind of bamboozling tactics, while at the same time changing the rules and regulations, and bamboozling Oceania into telling them, okay, well, we're not going to give you a referendum now, but just in case we decide to do anything about oil drilling later on, then we'll deal with that. It's another sleight of hand. So I want to point out here by reading this particular item, okay? Oops. Oh. I wonder if I hope I didn't hold it totally. Okay. I recall pointing out October 20th of 2021 when I wrote an article on this same issue of what the Prime Minister was trying to do, hide behind that reform commission, which is actually what he actually said on the clips that we just played. He's hiding behind that commission. But from 2021, I wrote this article, Belize Constitution Reform Commission. Belize PM is hiding behind the commission. Beware, take heed. Belize lacks talent and intelligence aggregation and deciphering analysis. Does the Prime Minister of Belize, Honorable Mr. John Briceño, understands contextually the meaning and implication of the term or word sedition as imbued or used and outlined in the Constitution of Belize? I went on to pose another question, question number 2. Does the Prime Minister of Belize, Honorable Mr. John Briceño, realizes or knows that neither he or any other officials of the Belize government are above the laws and the Constitution of Belize and could be exposed to charges of sedition for seditious intent activities? I went on to also pose a third question. But in addition to this third question, after the fact now, a couple of years later, we can now see that all these things that I was pointing out back then are now becoming relevant because we are now seeing the commission being put in place to do just exactly what I was intimating back then, and the Prime Minister hiding behind the commission, pretending that because the commission is in play, as the Attorney General says, that this commission is in play and therefore they think that, well, they're supposed to wait and do the referendum when the commission finishes its work. Question number 3. Does the Prime Minister of Belize, Honorable Mr. John Briceño, abhors or disagrees with the Constitution of Belize as it currently is and would like to arbitrarily and capriciously make changes, which I would consider his wet dream? Does the Prime Minister of Belize, Honorable Mr. John Briceño, understands or realize that the Constitution of Belize, as a living, self-preserving document, provides guidelines, protocols, procedures, processes, and practices for lawful and legal constitutional amendments, alterations thereof? I posed a 5th question. As a matter of fact, I posed 8 questions in a row, but this is the 5th one. Does the Prime Minister of Belize, Honorable Mr. John Briceño, really accept the limitations on his powers as Prime Minister of Belize, whilst not being the head of state? Question number 6. Does the Prime Minister of Belize, Honorable Mr. John Briceño, wishes Belize to dispense with all remaining British colonial vestiges that currently overshadows Belize Belize conditional independence, as his predecessors, former prime ministers, did? The 7th question reads as follows. Sorry. Does the Prime Minister of Belize, Honorable Mr. John Briceño, truly knows and understand what is the British High Commission and its purpose and functions in Belize, as compared to a British embassy in other countries? And the last question, number 8, does the Prime Minister of Belize, Honorable Mr. John Briceño, understands and realizes that he cannot be found to be attempting to suborn the Governor General of Belize, who serves at the pleasure of the head of state and whose appointment is subject to recall? Those 8 questions leads into a series of thoughts and legal statements, constitutional backup for all the different thoughts and the statements that I was making. It's a long dissertation, and I don't think I really want to spend the whole night getting into the whole details of it. But the bottom line is that we have, for our present government, a cabal of individuals who are basically scofflaws. They have no respect or regards or consideration for the laws of our country, particularly referring to the Constitution itself. They arbitrarily and capriciously want to dispense with the whole thing and probably come up with a new one for all we know. One that will allow them to have our country operate not only just as an independent country or a conditional independent country, but operate as an independent country under a Republican style governance, where the head of state is then elected by the people, and we get rid of all the vestiges of the head of state that we currently have. And for that, he needs to overthrow the present head of state. And he is now recruiting, or attempting to recruit the general populace of the country under false pretext that initially they were just going to go around the country and ask people whether or not they had any interest in having the Constitution changed and what they wanted to change from the Constitution, when instead they should have gone ahead and educate the people. Spend some time educating the people about what is in the Constitution. Sorry. They pretend that they are doing some education as of right now, but most of the presenters are presenting side shows that has nothing to do directly with people's basic civil rights, how they are preserved and protected, and how not to have the government abrogate them or derogate them. But instead, Mr. Usher, as part of his presentation, is going around teaching people that those rights, even though it says inalienable rights, and they are civil rights that should not be tampered with, the government have the power and the authority and the right to tamper with them. In other words, his emphasis in the government autocratic, arbitrary, and capricious ability to override people's constitution. He's not doing the job to let people know the strength of their constitutional rights and what it takes for the government to be able to derogate them if that scenario becomes a reality. And then we have some other people talking about education is not a right, others talking about voting is not a right, others talking, it's just a bunch of ludicrous stuff. And that is what they constitute as an educational campaign for people to know their constitution. While all they're trying to do is get people worked up to the point where the people will say, yes, we could make some changes to the Constitution. The authorities are already vested in our legislature to make changes, and they have been making changes, including the last sitting of the House that they went to. So the commission being in place doesn't stop them from doing their job. So they need to stop bamboozle. They need to stop lie. And they need to stop misrepresent what the Constitution says. and do the right thing by the country. Anyhow, I'll just for right now defer to Greg for his comments or input, or if he has something that he wants.
I thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have said it on more than one occasion. The past and now the present government is trying to get rid of the Referendum Act because the Referendum Act hold them at bay when it comes to national security with this country. And as you can see over the last clip that I played, even concerning with Oceania, the reason why they passed the amendment, because they know that the Referendum Act is alive and living well. And they don't want to have nothing that will hold them accountable. And there's bona fide proof to that. And I will go to this segment so you can hear it for yourself.
I think what the government is trying to do is to not tie us down to something that we might not be able to get out from. The Prime Minister has spoken about it, and in Cabinet we have discussed that at some point in time, technology, even like this type of technology, might be able to tell us what it is that we have out there, whether it is in terms of petroleum, minerals, whatever it is. And so we shouldn't have a legislation that ties us down and not be able to look at our resources. Belize has to depend a lot on its natural resources, but knowing what the value of your natural assets are very important for Belize, because even if you don't exploit it, well, at least you know you have it, so that can be used to put in as a natural asset value, put it on your balance sheet during the time of budgeting, and so it can be also used to leverage finances, to get low interest finances for development projects for the country.
Well, you heard it right there for yourself. The government is running away from any legislation that would tie them down. And Referendum Act is doing that. That is why they had spoken out of context when they tried to say that the People's Constitution Act also have a referendum, as to say that that has more power than the present Referendum Act, which is a no-no. Because the People's Constitution Act is non-binding as is. It has not been presented to the House. It has not been assented by the Governor General. So it is a non-binding issue. But, as I said before, past and now present government wants to get rid of the Referendum Act because they deem it as a legislation that is tying them down. And if they can get rid of that, then the people cannot approach them when it comes to national security, as in your fundamental rights, as in anything that has to do with Guatemala. They will have that in their power, you know? And again, as I said, the government under S69 has the majority and a super majority to create any laws that they want. But it bars them from touching anything that has to do with the fundamental rights of the people, because your fundamental right is non-negotiable and it's also non-debatable. But he is trying to come to you, the people at home and abroad, and he wants to turn you into sovereign citizens. He is asking you to join him into helping him to go up against the state. That is how he wants to achieve his agenda. With that said, let me turn it back to my cousin for his input.
Well, You hit that one right on the head, sir, because the last clip that you played with the gentleman speaking was actually saying what these other people have behind the back of their head, because then they discuss it among themselves. And the gentleman was just telling us in the public the opposite of what the Prime Minister and the Attorney General were trying to mislead us with, into believing that they were just trying to act in good faith in order to do the right thing. They want to know what kind of resource we have out there, and giving Oceania a referendum under the present Referendum Act criteria. If the government was to lose that referendum and get binded by the agreement that they have with Oceania and the other Opamo and all the other one, all the rest of them, they want the ability to be able to not have their hands tied, so that they can go out there and wheel and deal with whichever oil company they want to. And by the way, most of these big oil companies that go and drill in countries, they make a mess, they leave a mess, and they move on. That is the history of all oil companies that go into countries and drill and extract oil. They make a mess when oil spill. They make a mess when they pumping out the oil, because when the oil is coming out, it's coming out with fumes. So they have to burn off the fumes, and the burning of that fumes creates a lot of soot that goes into the air, contaminates the air, and settle on all the vegetation and kill out a whole lot of different species. All these things they're not telling the people. They're not explaining any of that to the people. Now they went down south and found a way to make agreement with some of the Mayan leaders, them, not all of them, some of them, so that they could bring this company back. US capital that was down there the last time, that's actually working over in Guatemala, so that they could bring some of the operations from over in Guatemala and put it on our side of the border, smack on the top of the vein of petroleum that is running under our country. And I'm going to tell the public this. If we think we had a problem with B&E in terms of how much of what they took out of the ground and how much hundreds of millions they made compared to how much they gave Belize and Belizeans, that was a travesty. But that is the kind of agreement that these people make when they go and do these natural resources. They take the natural resources that belong to the country for a few pennies that they pay under the counter to some officials that they can suborn. And they take out more of the assets out of the country than is declared. Historically, that has been a fact. Anybody that studies or deals with those kind of matters can tell you that what I'm saying is not just off the top of my head or something I'm just trying to say arbitrarily and capriciously, or just because I have an imperial lip. The facts are that whenever we get into bed with any big organization or any big country, any big powerful entity, we always end up to have we negotiators them getting suborned, and what belongs to us end up being owned by somebody else, either by contractual means and or by exploitation means. Then the man turned around and said, the Prime Minister, and I heard a part of the clip, or we probably cut the part off, where he says, we need to get the money from the Bolivia, from Brads, because we have people that we have to give education, we have to give food, we have to give different things to take care of the people and the hospitals and whatever else not. Why isn't he saying the same thing with Portugal when he's giving Portugal hundreds of millions of dollars tax break in so many different ways? No stamp duty, no taxes, Aren't these companies supposed to come to your country and pay some kind of a fee for using your country and the assets of your country so that they could make money? Aren't they supposed to share part of that money that they're making with the host country so that the host country could pay for its governance of the country? No. They go behind the scene and they make deals and suborn our country, make contracts and agreements with these people that these people could turn around afterwards and use to broke over for we head. Because once they go and sign documents in the name of a we country, as the government of a we country, as a matter of fact, they are not only just doing that, they're doing worse. Because they're telling any future government that the future government cannot alter or make any changes to any of the things that they are not doing with these guys that they want to get into bed with. Basically themselves, because I'm telling you, some of our top officials are involved with some of these entities, directly and indirectly. And it's all about what they're going to get at the end of the day. It's not what our treasury is going to get that is their concern or their main priority. Otherwise, Mr. Belizean would not have crushed the Bolido gaming scheme and lottery scheme, which was giving them $60 million, while he's fighting with trying to burn the whole country to get Portugal established, so Portugal could give us $6 million. He took away the gaming thing from Portugal, the people in here again. I forget. Brad's. And he not took it away and just automatically start getting the money. He took it away and he's sitting on it right now, and there's no money coming in for the government. There's no money circulating for the people. But yet they will have to pay Brad's for all the time that they took it away from Brad's. And where they get the money for pay Brad's from? Out of the same treasury that they're not putting any money into right now. While at the same time, they take for which treasury and facilitate Portugal with all kind of underhanded payments for this and for that and stuff where they don't want to pay for, and all kind of schemes and scams that they're running on us, and deplete for which treasury again, with very little coming back to the treasury many years after the fact when the Portugal stuff is then in play. So between now and then, there's just less money to come in and coffers, which is why they keep having to go and borrow. And they keep borrowing. And every time they come to the houses to come and borrow some more money. As far as I'm concerned, they used to complain so much about Mr. Barrow borrowing money to try to help the country move forward. I think they should have taken the man title and they're supposed to become borrowers now. Because they're the main borrowers. In a less than half of a term, half of one term, they have borrowed more than the Barrow administration and borrowing at 12 years. Have anybody figured that out yet? And by the time this one term is up, they're going to be borrowing at least $1.5 billion, which is a lot more than what the super bond was. Anyhow, Greg, let's pass it back over to you.
It's not hard to see that what the present government is doing is all illegal and unconstitutional stuff. Because when you go about taking away the Bolido from Brad's, and the Bolido, according to him, is a $50 to $60 million a year money
into the economy.
Right.
Keeps the economy stirring.
And that will include the tax that they will get. So my thing was this: why would you want to go all the way to create a legislator for a foreign company that will bring you the same $6 million a year that you are taking nearly 3 months going and 4 months to implement the Bolido, which will give you the same money and it will stop you from destroying the environment. It will stop you from messing up the habitat for the Malante and all that. It will stop you from cutting down the mangroves. Why is it that you are so adamant and getting this particular deal through? When the Bolido alone, if you fully implement it, you will achieve much more than what you will get from Portico. It does not make no sense to me because the Prime Minister is willing to violate our Constitution and doing so through passing legislation. And I can prove it to you because what you were saying is rightfully true. And I want you to hear this again.
Well,
And I
the
will tell
particular
you,
legislation, well, presently, I think they're still working on it and to see what can be done to be able to present to cabinet.
What's being done is this draft, still in the strikeout stage, but it shows the major thrust of the proposed legislation. The Belize Cruise Ship Docking Facility and Tourism Village Development Bill is created to provide for the development of a cruise port docking facility and tourism village, and to provide for certain exemptions and benefits and for the levy of a cruise ship facility fee, normally what you'd call a head tax. The bill provides for a fiscal incentives order, which entitles the developer to large tax exemptions. But not any developer, one who meets the investment requirements, quote, of not less than $250 million, we assume US dollars.
no, right here, I stopped the video there because I wanted to point out why this legislation would be unconstitutional. You cannot put a threshold on any foreign investor and tell them if you can't meet that threshold, then you can't come and open business here. And there is a precedent case for that. If you recall what happened with the cane farmers in the BSI case,
Mm-hmm.
it was struck down
Recently.
because you, the government, cannot tell no corporation, or you, the corporation, cannot tell no individual trying to do business that they must bring so much ton. Unless they do that, you will not accept it. Let me hear you on that, Mr. Brackett.
In addition to what really happened is that these guys are a bunch of scofflaws, and I keep saying it over and over and over. How can they have so many lawyers among them, and none of those lawyers among them is willing to challenge them and give them the necessary information so that they can make proper and constitutional laws that will stand up in the courts and will get them what they're trying to get? Why do they have to be so hard-headed and so anti-constitutional? And so, I mean, they're scofflaws. They just don't care. That's all I could say. They just don't care. They don't have no respect for the law. That's why I want to, well, you know, let me read this thing here. I need to read it. I'll just go ahead and read it. Belize at 40 years of independence Prime Minister Mr. John Briceño's wet dream is Constitution of Belize revamping. Prime Minister of Belize, Honorable Mr. John Briceño, appears to be getting power drunk, announcing a Constitutional Reform Commission, CRC, now a PCC, to reform the Constitution of Belize into a more pliable document so as to aggregate to government of Belize some additional powers vested in the Belizean head of state and in the Belizean people, and the Constitution, the current Constitution, and protected by the Constitution. It is a harbinger of what's to come, that is to say, riddance of existing constraints on government from the Constitution of Belize as we currently know them, to possibly dictatorship, ministerial fiat governance before the current term is completed. This was a couple of years back when I was writing this stuff, pointing out what these guys currently are carrying on with. How Mr. Mai from Orange Walk South could arbitrarily and capriciously stipulate what he did to BSI, for which they were taken to court, and they ended up losing the case because of their arbitrary and capricious attitudes and their rambunctiousness, and because they have authority to make statutory instruments, that they will make a statutory instrument that turns around and be violative of our laws and the good spirit of our laws, to the point where they lose a case in court. We're losing this case over and over and over. And these guys, I wouldn't say they don't have a clue, because I'm telling you, they have good lawyers among them. So they have to have a clue. I think the guys are just arbitrary and want to bullyrag the process, especially now that they have such a super majority. Somewhere in their head, they have the belief that whatever comes out of their head is the law of the day. They fail to understand that they have to operate and run the country within the bounds of the Constitution. Otherwise, they'll keep having the same experience over and over, getting sued and getting told that they are violative of the Constitution, when in fact they swore allegiance to the Constitution. I'll read a small little bit more. Both major mass parties, being the UDP and the PUP, as government of Belize, have indulged in bastardization of the Constitution of Belize in various ways, for different reasons and objectives, and at different times, whilst attempting to govern by fiat dictatorially, by overreaching and aggregating to themselves and exercising punitive powers with impunity at that. After Belize's independence from 20th of September 1981. I won't read any more of that. It's like I said, it's a long dissertation, and it goes into telling us where we were the time I was writing it, and where we were heading to, and we are arriving at today. Go ahead, Mr. Go ahead, Greg. You want to play our music?
Well, I have said it on more than one occasion that we are dealing with a discriminative government that discriminates against some people, and they have no problem doing that. As you can see, the present government is favoring one foreign minister over the other two, as in the Ashcroft regime and in the Feinstein regime.
Mm-hmm.
So, by the piece of legislation they are passing, they are simply trying to say that those two entities will not meet the threshold, so they will have to stop what they are doing. And then you know what will happen? There will be lawsuits, and the taxpayer will have to pay again. Because, as you rightfully say, when the government went after BSI and they lost the case, they turn around and wanting to appeal it when they know it's unconstitutional. And we can see it here again, the discriminative way. No, in the past agreement, the agreement had in it, according to the investors, that once they started to do their port, they wanted it to be a bar from any other such entity to be 25 miles in radius that close to them. So when we hear this
Unconstitutional.
legislation, when we hear this legislation that they are trying to pass, isn't the threshold a bar like the 25 miles radius?
Yes.
Because that is what they're doing. They are taking the 25 miles, which will not be in it, but they are putting a cap, and then you have a bar. So forget the 25 miles. We will just make a threshold, and then you cannot proceed. It is unconstitutional. It is inconsistent, and it's null and void. Because the Constitution grants foreigners the right to present what they want to do in this country through open tenure. You come to the government, you present what you want, and then you go on from there. Yes, Mr. Brackett.
Uh, you know, we have been flagging this particular issue quite a bit, but tonight I want to point out something that after such a long time should have become obvious. I just want to point it out. Maybe I'm being redundant. The tourism industry is a very lucrative industry, big money making industry, and for all intents and purposes, if people can have their own section of the industry cornered, regardless of how they get facilitated for them to be able to get it cornered, just to get it cornered means that they have a good gig going and the potential for success and big money making is there. So it's becoming very obvious that this government, for all intents and purposes, based on their actions, is implying that they're going to sabotage the Feinstein's operation, which has been undergoing for a long time in its development phase, has spent a lot of money already, and are now being suffocated by the government with all kind of underhanded efforts. The Ashcroft regime, for whom I have no love or care or whatever, because as far as I'm concerned, they are malignant predator on our society, and particularly on our government coffers. And they play the role in both parties to suborn both parties so that we, the Belizean people, end up getting the bukut as usual, regardless of where party win or where party come in. And they walk away with substantive funds from our treasury that we, the government of Belize, then don't have available to it to meet its obligation and do what's right on behalf of the country. But we have these guys who have our governance captured by virtue of lying to us initially in order to get it, and are now using, misusing, and abusing it against our interests and for their own interests. So because the tourism industry is a big money-making scam, or not scam, I wouldn't call it a scam, a scheme. It's a scheme. They want to get involved in it. And the people that they have fronting for them right now, like the gigs and others, who are just bit players in the whole process, they are trying to have this protocol overshadow and overrun Mr. Feinstein's effort and overtake Mr. Feinstein's effort. And the government is going to block off Mr. Ashcroft from being able to make headway with his intended effort. And at the end of the day, in order to facilitate protocol with legislation, giving them all kind of economic breaks to the tune of millions of dollars that should go into our government coffers, because some of that is going to get kicked back to some of these guys who are interested parties and whom have been suborned in order to facilitate them. The bottom line is that the Belizean people saw where the Prime Minister got caught with his hand in the cookie jar initially, trying to lie to his own cabinet members and deceive his own cabinet members into helping him to facilitate protocol coming about. And they blocked him, at least in the first instance. He didn't stop right there and turn around and change his mind. He decided to take off some time and went to the house and tear up and copy the document, but keep the original in a drawer at work. Went back to work and continued plagiarizing, as you had said before, Greg. They will plagiarize that document. That's what we had said before. And now we find out that, yes, they have plagiarized it because they're giving them basically the same concession, except with some small minor modification. And claiming now that they have a new agreement that the people agree to. But we, the Belizean people, do not agree to. And they're trying to pretend that they're agreeing to it on our behalf and compromising our laws and our country and our treasury and our future government that we might end up voting for if and when we decide to kick these scoundrels out of office. We will still be over the barrel because those other people will still be able to come and sue us again and probably win. Why? Because they had an ascension from the government. They had authority from the government, unlike what they were trying to claim initially, that Mr. Contreras had authority from the government, which he didn't have. They are perfecting the deal now by putting the authority of the government legally behind it. So now that he has gotten enough of his cabinet members then to agree with him, he's bringing back the stuff to cabinet again for them to discuss it. When long time ago he said, when they caught him the first time, he said, okay, well, they'll come back and they will find a way to have these people get them port. And they're trying to give them as much of the things that were in that previous agreement as they can afford to get away with, including other parts that they won't try to expose or let us get an awareness of. Because under the Freedom of Information Act, all that information should be available to us and to the media so that we, the people out here, can know what the hell is going on and what they're signing us up for. Because it's not them that are going to pay the bill, that we will have to pay the bill. But then they sign the agreement in secrecy and wait until after the agreement is the ink done dry and then move on. Then we will have to smell, how the ink will smell when I sign it with. But I'll pass over again to you, Mr. Chair. Greg.
At the end of the day, if they pass that legislation, as I said before, it will be inconsistent with the Constitution and it will be null and void. And I will tell you why. The government, through favoritism and discrimination, cannot put a threshold for foreign investors. Any other corporation that wants to come and open a tourism port, as an example, you cannot tell them if they are not investing $250 million, that is a bar. You cannot do that. It is inconsistent with the Constitution and it will be null and void. The same thing happened to BSI. BSI was trying to tell some of the cane farmers, if you do not bring so much tons of canes, we will not accept it. You cannot do that. It violates the Constitution that gives you the right to work, to do trade, etc. Go ahead.
On that last word, trade, Mr. Ashcroft operates in Belize. All his various companies or different assets under that previous. Remember, we had a discussion before where we had mentioned on one of our previous shows that Belize have an agreement with England and Ireland when it comes to trade. It is under that agreement that Mr. Ashcroft is operating, and that is the reason why in every instance he has won, and in every other future instance he will win. Because that agreement that was signed is an international agreement. Okay? It was not signed just with a single individual or a single company. This was an international trade agreement. So Mr. Ashcroft and sue we, the Belizean people, or the government of Belize, sit back and collect money where he never actually had to work for. Even if you don't get a port in place, you can still get paid. Why? Because of the knuckle-headed government managers that we have currently. They are unprepared to work with the man or against the man when it comes to the Belizeans' interests. Either work against him for our interests or work with him for our interests. These guys are not about the Belizean people's interests. And that is why I'm saying that they're failing. They're failing us, the Belizean people. They will be better off if protocol comes about. Because like I said, they're interested parties. That's why they haul and pull and strangle with governance structure to such an extent to force this process through. And come hell or high water, Mr. Briceño will not demit office until he gets it done. He was not expected to run for another term beyond this current one. But when he went into this current one, all he was interested in was to have his name go down in our records that he successfully, finally became a prime minister of the country, which he was hoping to become if the Barrow government didn't last 3 terms. Mr. Briceño would have hoped to have at least won a previous term in office before this current one that he finally ended up being able to win. And after this one, he was not expecting to spend any more time in politics because he's been in there over 30 odd years. And he's flush with cash and assets and would like to go and spend some time with his family and kids and grandkids and whoever's not and enjoy with his colleagues, out at Key Chapel and other places, go to Guatemala again, maybe go talk to the president and enjoy while you eat cocktail or whatever, The man, he want to live one part of his life before he peg out, or maybe before Unkak come and catch him, because as I'm telling them, Unkak will be put in place, and a lot of them, they won't get visited. But that's another subject for another night. Take over, Greg. Thank you very much for yielding just now.
But again, it's a process and the discrimination. it is not hard to see how the present government is acting and how they try to protect themselves. They are acting as though under Section 6.1 of the Constitution, every individual in Belize do not have equal protection under the law. Now that they find they are doing this constitution reform, they know that some people will be against it, and they know that some people might go up against them. And they decided, well, you know what?
Toughen up the law.
We will change the law to suit that. You know?
Can we hear Mr. Musa?
Yes. And again, the law is unconstitutional because it discriminates. You cannot discriminate. There we go.
Man.
We have seen across the world where there are attacks and threats being made against various public officers and personalities in the media. In some countries, journalists are even killed. And we have recognized that there is a sort of imbalance in the legislation. Those individuals who are very public individuals and who are oftentimes targeted are not protected under the legislation. If an assault happens, it is considered to be a common assault, which the penalty is very low. And so we recognize the importance of protecting these individuals because they have certainly a high presence in society, and it is necessary that they are offered at least the protection of an aggravated assault charge.
So you find it right there. They are classifying people. He is outrightly saying, as a learned man who should know the Constitution,
a lawyer,
that some people are in a higher category than others, and they needed extra protection. How amazing. Likewise, we can go and I can point out again to you what is discriminating against your own people. Because, as you said before, we have tourism. And we have a lot of Belizean people living in the diaspora who comes home every now and then. But that is also money going in the government coffers. And just recently, a clip I played, we are finding out how the Prime Minister is trying to discriminate against Belizeans because, as he put it, some of them don't have no ties to Belize. But then, if you are saying that, why the hell on earth do your government goes to the diaspora begging the Belizean people for donation and to help with the economy? Because I think we are dealing with a government who has no shame in what he do. And I want to play the clip.
So, Madam Speaker, the Cabinet has considered this matter very carefully. And we have decided that we should introduce the same 1 year.
I think the ISP is freezing up, so the clip will not play. But
that's all right.
I want to play.
Can I comment?
So, Madam Speaker, the Cabinet has considered this matter very carefully. And we have decided that we should introduce the same 1 year residency requirement for the minor to qualify for Belizean nationality. What has been happening is that thousands of these minors have been getting nationality with no connection to Belize. They don't even visit Belize. but because one of their parents now is a Belizean national, then they get a Belizean nationality and could get a Belizean passport. So the Belizean Nationality Amendment Act of 2023, when passed, will introduce the one-year residency requirement. In this way, the minor will be able to get his or her nationality. We're not saying you can't get it. They will be able to get it after 1 year residency in Belize, the same way their parents managed to get their nationality after 1 year of marriage and being resident in Belize. Madam Speaker, we believe that persons who seek to obtain Belizean nationality must have some sort of connection to our country. Now, it's important for me to make this very, very clear, and a member of Cabinet did ask this question. The amendment will not apply to, nor will it prohibit what we call roots Belizeans, Belizeans that got their nationality because they were born in Belize, from passing on their nationality to their children, whether they were born, wherever they were born, without having any kind of residency requirement. Notwithstanding the 2014 legislation, descendants of persons who received economic citizenship prior to 2014 have continued to apply for citizenship by descent, relying on the provisions of the Belize Nationality Act that enables descendants to rely on their parents' nationality to obtain Belizean nationality. Hundreds, if not thousands, have become Belizeans using the procedure since 2014. Well, what happened, again, to give further explanation, if a person gets the nationality through the economic citizenship program, then that person becomes a Belizean, then their children apply for citizenship, and so they become Belizeans. Then their children apply because they have citizenship. I know we probably are maybe on the 4th and 5th generation of economic citizen. People are applying because of an economic citizenship program program that was done during the time of probably their grandfather, or even some instances their great grandfather. If that was not bad enough, Madam Speaker, we have noticed also that non-Belizean spouses who marry Belizean economic citizenship have also applied for nationality, relying on the provision in the law that entitles a spouse to claim Belizean nationality through marriage. Again, hundreds of persons have taken advantage of this loophole. Madam Speaker, we believe that these loopholes are being abused and used to defeat the intent of this honorable House to abolish economic citizenship.
Now,
Can I jump on that
you
one, Jay?
hear the Prime Minister speaking about loophole. I need to ask the question, is it okay for the American government to pay him to take in foreigners that they don't want to go to the US, as we just did, 12,000 that have no ties to Belize, or you want to bar Belizean who has ancestry ties and whose grandparents and parents in the diaspora are contributing to the government economically? I need an answer to that, because something here is ludicrous. You are saying Belizeans who don't have no ties must go through this process, but yet it's ancestral, and you go over there and you beg for money and you get donation where you are not getting from these people you bringing in, and it's okay for them because America is giving you money. They can come and get it with no ties. Can you answer that for me?
But what kind of money then you get, Mr. Chairman? Pittance. Few penny on every head, or a few dollars on every head. When in fact, the amount of money that they get for the people that they bring in, and they turn around and use the laws of our government and our constitution to facilitate that. But they turn around and haul and pull the very same laws to not facilitate Belizeans. Now, I want to point out something here, right? Guys, the gentleman was at least coming from a decent perspective. He would first of all want to make any laws or amendments or changes that he's trying to make not go retroactive, but making a law for any other future occasion or occurrences. In other words, allow the law as it was before when the people ain't got their citizenship, and under the basis of the law that authorized their citizenship, allow that law to stand as far as those people are concerned. But he's concerned about those people, and he wants to derogate a right that was already established on behalf of those people before. He's not talking about going forward. They're not going to continue doing that for any new people, such as the one that they bring in right now. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about trying to disenfranchise people who had legal and lawful statuses prior. He wants to go back and truncate that in the past. The decent thing to do if you're going to be a decent, honorable lawmaker is to make a law addressing this very same concern, but going forward or in the future. But even at that point, if I were to concede that to them, I would say, why the hell is he even coming to the House telling them that he wants to make new laws when in fact he has a constitutional People's Constitution Commission in play, like what the Attorney General said. They have one constitutional commission in play with a referendum that is in play. So he should not be coming to the House to try and make no law. Wait for the process consummate itself through the constitutional reform or People's Constitution Committee Commission. Sit a butt down, stay home, don't come to work, don't go to his office, because he's already stipulated that he gave all the government's powers to the Constitution Committee. That's why he could not honor Oceana's referendum criteria that they met under the present laws. These guys are a bunch of scoundrels and scofflaws. They're not interested in proper governance or in the laws. They have no respect, consideration for the laws. They don't have no respect for themselves, much as anybody else. So these guys are not, it's not that they don't know what they're trying to do. They just don't know how to get it done decently. Okay? Go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
The people in the diaspora have to be really careful of what they do, because just by hearing what he said on nationality, when it comes to Belizean people, if you might be a fourth or fifth generation, I believe that the Prime Minister does not want the Belizeans living in the diaspora to come back to Belize. And the Belizeans are not really waking up and looking at what is happening. He's saying it from his own mouth. And I will tell you why. He's coming to them to help with the Constitution reform, right? And they in return are not fighting for the 7th Amendment that will give them the right to vote in an election or referendum. Now, you know what will happen when the Constitution reform is done? They will not get the 7th Amendment done, and the Constitution will change, and they will become what? Outsiders to their country. There will be no way they will be able to come back that easy in the country, because that is the intention. The
But Greg,
intention is to, yes,
some Belizean people come back to the country, Greg, especially the black ones. Them, like I said last week, I was dealing with some of the situation with hundreds of people. They complain, say that they go the holiday, and they get mistreated at the immigration people when they come off the plane. They get mistreated by the custom people. They want to know, well, why don't they bring new shoes to wear or new clothes, underwears or whatever then they bring, as if maybe they think that then they bring the commercial or for sale. If the people are not bring dirty drawers, you know, they're not supposed to be welcome. They're supposed to be harassed, and they're supposed to be put through all kind of ringers.
right. But what I was getting across to,
So idiots,
we
man.
know that people come back. You have grandkids that want to go to the place of birth of their grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
They heard of it, they hear it's a jewel, they want to see it. But he is trying to put a stop to that. Where in place I'm saying, you don't have no shame coming to these people when you are in need, but you want to bar them from their grandchildren coming and getting citizenship when you are taking foreigners that absolutely have no kind of ties.
Mm-hmm.
And you have no shame in doing it. You are saying it outright.
Because there's an agenda. There's a much bigger agenda.
And this is why I was mentioning the 7th Amendment. Because as far as I'm seeing it, it is getting farther away in the gloom. You never stand up and fight for it. Constitution reform is happening. They will use you to help get your input to change it. And you know, once it changes, the 7th Amendment will be nowhere around. You might not even come up in it as a topic, because that is what is happening, you know. But again, as I said, I want the people to understand rightfully what their fundamental rights really and truly mean to them. Because even when you have third party in lawyers trying to teach you that, they are in denial, because they do not want to tell you that when our ancestors or forefathers wrote it, they wrote it in a way so that it cannot be written out of existence. And that is why the government is having this hard time. Because not even the Belizean public can give the government no leeway to change it. They must have a referendum, because that is the fundamental right of each individual, and it cannot be debated, and it cannot be negotiable. And go ahead, Mr. Brackett.
I'll just read a little something here as a little nugget. The basic structure doctrine is the title. The basic structure doctrine holds that the fundamental principles of the preamble of the Constitution have to be preserved for all times to come, and they cannot be amended out of existence. The learned judge in this particular case, case number 7738, it a law. It's a case law, by the way, because it went through the Supreme Court, the Appellate Court, and our final regional court of the Caribbean Court of Justice. I'll go back to page number 53 of that particular decision, item number 49. the learned judge in that case said, I see it, for example, that the fundamental rights in a constitution are inherent and cannot be extinguished by a constitutional or statutory provision, and any law which abrogates or extinguishes such rights would be violative of the basic structure doctrine. The submission, page 53, item number 50 of the same case, the judge went on to say, the submission that the National Assembly of Belize can, subject to the limitations contained in sections 69, 2, 3, 4 of the Constitution, that they can make just about any amendment to the Constitution, seems as shown above to ignore the intentions of the makers of the Constitution as per the preamble, was propounded in the preamble. So that is a major milestone case, stare decisis case, and the learned judge stipulated that our Constitution protects our rights. Our rights are enshrined in the preamble, and any law that our Congress or House of Representatives makes that violates any of those constitutional rights is violative of our Constitution and should be ruled as null and void, as stated in Part 1, Section 2 of our Constitution. Any law that is inconsistent with the intents of the Constitution as we currently know them. Okay, if 100% of the members of the House put it together and the Senate agrees to it, and even if the Governor General assent to it, the courts have the final say in interpreting what that law is and whether or not it is constitutional or not, which is why Mr. Barrow was trying to eviscerate that particular section of the Constitution to stop the court from having its proper function as part of the separation of powers doctrine and practices. And we keep bringing up these cases all the time. We keep talking about them because we're hoping that somehow or another, the people who are not versed in their Constitution will hear what we are talking about and become inquisitive enough to go search a little bit further and see if what we tell them make any sense or is correct. There are those who are not lawyers, who have money, that they could hire a liar to make the liars give them the advice or the input. We're attempting to provide it here for free for any and everybody, including some of the liars then, because I'm telling you, some of these matters that we're talking about here, I've had to discuss them with some of our lawyers, and basically, for lack of a better way of expressing it, educate them on things that they are supposed to be educated on as lawyers.
To be honest with you,
some of them look in my face and then tell me, well, you know what? You're not a member of the bar. You're not a Belizean lawyer. So what gives you the right to propound on any of these legal matters in such a veracious way? I'm a connoisseur of the law. I'm a connoisseur of the Constitution. I'm a connoisseur of international law. I'm a connoisseur of the basic structure of the Constitution. I know the preamble of the Constitution. I know my rights. And I know tort law. I've advocated in courtrooms on various legal matters and have prevailed. So when they come to me as an individual and tell me that, well, they don't know me to be one liar and therefore I should go and make one liar say where to say in order for them to believe it, I tell them take a hike. As I had to tell some of my own colleagues on a previous platform that we were on, I'm not going to go hire a liar to come and tell you where I don't tell you. You go hire your own liar, get your money and go pay the liar and see if what the liar to tell you are any different than where to tell you. When you know, you know. That's the difference. Some people go to law school and they come out and they still don't know. Look at the left one is supposed to bring out with them in the classroom. But anyhow, that's a different point. I don't want to share and
Rightfully said. Because I will say it, you don't have to really know. Because of the pillars on which our Constitution is built. Our Constitution is built on God, the great provider and supreme being. And to be honest, in the law, anytime they step into the courtroom and they go to defend an individual, it is based on Section 3 to 19 of the Constitution. That
inclusive. Inclusive. Don't forget that one word. That one word, inclusive.
That is where your rights are, and they must go there to see if your fundamental right was violated. That is how they win cases. Everything that has to do with the man-made law called substantive law, if they violate your fundamental rights, they are null and void. You know? And it is not just me.
Greg?
Right.
You will go ahead and wrap up, please?
I know.
Yes, sir.
So
no, go ahead and wrap up. I'm giving you the last time on the show, the last 3 minutes, 4 minutes.
Thank the people at home and abroad for tuning in. And what I would say is your fundamental rights are important. Your fundamental rights is what have a bar to the government, abuse you, and take advantage of you. And you must stand up and defend those rights. I want to play this piece of video so you can hear how a foreigner can come in and talk about the rights that you have.
The 4-day Social Protection Summit represents a significant milestone in the implementation of the UN Joint Program with a primary objective to engage partners and stakeholders in a national dialogue towards the development of a social protection framework and a strategy for Belize. This will encompass a comprehensive social protection flow which will be costed, ensuring minimum protection across the life cycle for every Belizean. The United Nations is firm in its commitment to support the government in making a reality the social protection for all, as has been mentioned before, a fundamental human right, which means it is non-negotiable, non-debatable. It's just a matter of us getting on the board and moving the train forward. And I want to say at this point that I want to congratulate the government of Belize. Sitting in the second row and seeing all the powerful women sitting in the front row, I know we are on the right track. I think we want to give ourselves a big hand. Belize is ready to establish a social protection floor for all.
So, right there again, you have it. Your fundamental right. They cannot take it away from you. It is not debatable. It is not
hard and try.
negotiable.
Because we will be there as a vanguard.
And you know, I will end by saying, this is why I have, when I try to educate the people at home and abroad, and the Constitution, have always said If the government wanted to do right by the people in a constitution reform, they should have strengthened it.
Enhance
They
it.
should not have tried to touch nothing in the fundamental rights, which is part 2 and part 1. They should have moved that over and then continue to do what they want, which is changing the laws, if that is what they wanted. Because they already have a supermajority under S69. All they have to do is change the laws and implement it on to Section 1 and Section 2 and strengthen Section 2. And don't forget, as I said, it took the Bahamas 8 years to rewrite, and they still have not finished their constitution. With that, I would like to say good night to the people at home and abroad. Thank you again for tuning into this, our 55th edition of Belizean Affairs. With
God
that
bless
said, I
Belizeans at home and abroad. Good night. Bye-bye. Good day, Greg. Log out.